Hello again and welcome to the Scoring from the 50 podcast. This is episode 9 and we have a few good games coming up this weekend. Just a few, not very many this weekend. Might be a shorter episode today, but nonetheless we do have a couple games. Maybe not a couple, maybe like 4, 5, 6 I think. I'm not quite sure, but to get us started we have LSU at Mississippi State. Can LSU right the ship? It's their first Power 5 game since a loss to Florida State. Mississippi State has a great defense and a really good quarterback. Can Jalon Daniels play better? He did not play good enough at all against Florida State. He needs to step it up. Not only to just win this game, but he also needs to step up because he needs to play better, and he needs to play better than what he did against Florida State going forward because they still got to play Alabama. They still got to play at a really tough SEC schedule, and that's going to be pretty impossible if Jalon Daniels isn't playing to the best of his abilities. If LSU is the team that we think that they are, they'll win this game easily. But there's a man named Will Rogers who's going to make this game very, very difficult. He has the all-time SEC record for completions, right? He has 1,192 career completions, which is way more than anyone else. No one else in the SEC has ever had more than 1,000. But yet, they're not using them the right way, right? Mike Leach, he had a very, very pass-heavy offense. And after his tragic passing, he kind of left a hole in the head coaching position at Mississippi State. Will Arnett took over after Mike Leach passed away, and he does not know how to run an offense. I'm just going to be honest. And if Mississippi State wants to pull off this upset, they're going to have to use Will Rogers in the right way. In 13 games in 2022, Rogers averaged 47 pass attempts per game last year. 47. Through 2 games in 2023, he has 46. Through 2 games, he has 46. His workload has been cut in half. I thought Mississippi State would be really good this year because of Will Rogers. You know, he's all-time completions leader. He's really, really, really good. And with Mike Leach, he was used the right way, so he was really, really, really good. Which is why his workload has literally been cut in half in this new offense. Which is why I do think LSU is going to win this game. I just think they're the better, talented team and way too well coached to lose a game like this. But don't count out Mississippi State. They're a very good football team. Be careful betting on this game, but I think LSU's a better team, better coached. Not much more to say about it. Moving on to one of my favorite games of the week, South Carolina at Georgia. This game could be a blowout. Very easily, Georgia will destroy them. Or it'll look like Missouri 2.0 for Georgia. You know who I'm going to pick, right? Why would I bother talking about Georgia whenever everyone knows who they are and who they're going to be? So I want to talk about how is it possible that South Carolina can win this game. Honestly, it's very possible. Is it likely? No. But it's definitely possible. To win this game, South Carolina is going to need to be way better on the offensive line. 9 sacks allowed against North Carolina is not good enough whenever you're going against Georgia. Well, against T.N. Martin and Ball State, Georgia only has 1 sack. Even if you put both those games combined, they have 1 sack against some very subpar opponents. If you're going to do 1 sack against those guys, you're not going to get any in the SEC. If you're doing that against some very subpar teams, what do you think you're going to do against the SEC line? You're not going to get anything. Give Spencer Rattler some time to find his weapons, and he has some, and Xavier Leggett and Tayshawn Russell, and some explosive things could happen for South Carolina. Defensively, South Carolina needs to slow down Georgia's run game, and it might be possible with Georgia running backs room not being 100%. They could certainly slow that down and force Carson Beck to throw it downfield, and maybe, just maybe, you might get an interception or 2, which would be huge in beating this Georgia team. Now, even if they do all that, there's no guarantee that they win. They could do everything I just said and still lose the football game. That's just how good Georgia is. That's why they're still my pick. It has to be a perfect game from South Carolina to beat this Georgia team. But if they do play a perfect game, they could win. They could win. I'm not saying they're going to. It's very likely that they don't. Should be an interesting game. Next up, Washington at Michigan State. Do I even really want to talk about this game? I'm not sure I do, but I'm going to. I don't really have a lot to say about it other than Washington is going to win this game, and it's a big game, but I think Washington is going to win this easily. okay, I want to keep this focused on football, but yes, they have a new coach in Harlan Barnett. Yes, Mike D'Antonio is back in the building. Are those good things for Michigan State? Probably. But I just don't think they're going to be very focused on the game, at least the players. Maybe the coaches, but definitely not the players. And that's why I think that they're going to have too much to overcome, and Washington's still my pick. Michael Penix is just a great quarterback. He's top 6 or 7 in the country. He's going to torch an already very mentally and physically defeated secondary. Tennessee at Florida. This game could be very, very interesting. Florida will have hopefully fixed some of their defensive issues from the Utah game, but Joe Milton has looked mediocre at best so far. This is a winnable game for a talented team in Florida. Like I said a couple weeks ago, they have a 70% blue chip ratio, and I think that staff in Gainesville, they think that Graham Mertz was very underutilized at Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin even told them that they didn't use him in the right way, and if they did, he could have been a lot better than what he was. Do I think they pull off the upset? No. I think Tennessee's just too talented. I think Joe Milton could take a step forward here. And even if he doesn't, they have a really, really good run game to back it up if he doesn't play that great. I think it'll be kind of like the Texas Tech and Oregon game last week. I think Tennessee just has better talent, better coaches to win this game. But it should be interesting. It could be a very close game between Tennessee and Florida. If Joe Milton struggles, it could get rough, but I think Tennessee's run game is good enough to win them a game. Pitt at West Virginia is my next game. Honestly, not a huge game. It's a rivalry game, and Neil Brown possibly could get fired after it if he loses. They've been bad for a long time, and people are fed up with it. West Virginia deserves to go back to the glory days in the mid-2000s, and Neil Brown just isn't the guy that's going to get them there. I got Pitt winning. They're a better team, better coaches. Is Neil Brown the first coach to be fired? He's not the favorite anymore. That is now Jimbo Fisher, but he's still number 2. It's hard for me to see a way that West Virginia even competes in this game. I think Pitt's really good. Not great. Not like top 15, but they're a good team. Way better than West Virginia. They are terrible. That's why I think Pitt wins. Neil Brown gets fired within the next month. Minnesota at North Carolina. This could be a very interesting game. It's two polar opposites. One really good defense in Minnesota, one elite offense in North Carolina. Drake May has looked really good all season, but then so again has Minnesota's defense. I think this game could get really interesting and possibly an upset for Minnesota. I don't think it happens. North Carolina is just really good. Their defense looks a lot more improved from last year. Their defensive line had 9 sacks against South Carolina. I talked about this a couple minutes ago, but their defense looks a lot better, and their offense is obviously going to be really good. The question I have with this game is who is on the field for North Carolina? Do we see Tez Walker on the field on Saturday? Do we? Does Mac Brown put him out there anyways? Throw a big old middle finger to the NCAA? Why not? Who cares? What's the NCAA going to do about it? We can just keep ignoring their rules. If you're going to ignore it once, just keep ignoring it. I think he should. I think it'd be a huge middle finger, and I think it'd be a really, really, really big step forward for the sport as a whole, because we really need to get rid of the NCAA. They are terrible. They don't know how to make a decision. They're never consistent in their decisions. They need to fix something or get out. And I think Mac Brown is leaning towards get out. He should just put Tez Walker in. Why not? Why not? Okay. My game of the week and my last game. I know it's a shorter podcast, just not a lot of great games, and I've been kind of busy recently, so I haven't been able to do a lot of research on these games, but I was able to do a lot of research on these games, at least some of them. K-State at Mizzou is my game of the week. Okay, this might not be a huge game to some, right? But it is to a lot of people here in Missouri. As you guys know, I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. You got a lot of people here calling for Eli Drinkwitz's job, and even more calling for Brady Cook to be benched. This is both their shot to prove they can do something. They competed against Georgia, yes, but they need to prove that they can win against Georgia, win against a top 15 team. You know, Eli Drinkwitz has one top 25 win against South Carolina a few years ago. That's it. They have another shot to do that right here. On the flip side, you have K-State trying to prove that they're going to compete for a Big 12 title again. Right now, they're the biggest threat to Texas, and they are one of the only ones that have the team to compete and possibly beat Texas. But first they have to travel to Mizzou and deal with a very hostile environment. Can K-State replace Deuce Vaughn? One of the best backs in the country last year. He's now in the NFL. He left a huge gap at running back. Can Brady Cook play like he did against Georgia last year? Again, he played great. Can he replicate that against K-State? Can Mizzou's defense step up to the challenge? Who knows? Because K-State has a great offense. They got Will Howard at running back, R.J. Garcia at wide receiver, DJ Giddens at running back. They all look great. Can Mizzou's defense step up to the challenge? I don't think they can. I think K-State's just a better team. I think they're going to win this game. No stars, no nothing, just a bunch of big Kansas country boys looking for someone to run over. Will Howard has looked really great so far. Has a few weapons in Phillip Brooks, who has 13 catches for 134 yards, and R.J. Garcia, who has 8 catches for 150 yards in their first 2 games. Pair that with 2 good running backs in DJ Giddens and Trayshawn Walker, and you got yourself a winning football team. I think K-State is going to be really good this year. Like I just said, they have the roster to compete with Texas in the Big 12. But again, I know it's a shorter podcast. We'll probably have maybe another shorter one on Tuesday next week, but next Thursday, we got some really good games coming up on week 4. I'll be here to talk about it right here on YouTube and maybe Apple Podcasts if you're listening on that. Thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, follow on Apple Podcasts. Do whatever you want to do. But I appreciate you guys listening to the whole podcast, especially if you listen this far. I will see you guys again next Tuesday. Have a great week 3.